Hello, my friend. I'm excited to have my very good friend and go-to-market expert, Jordan Crawford, founder of Blueprint, with me for go-to-market in the Tofu Bowl today. So thanks for joining me, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for being so meat friendly with your company name.
Exactly. Uh, the funny thing is, I keep getting asked if I like tofu, and the actual answer is I do not as a food, which
You
is
got to
somewhat
get on
ironic.
board. You got to try other, like, you should just do a live stream of you eating different variants of tofu and being like, don't like this one, don't like this one.
Well, we're talking about doing direct mail. So I feel like direct mail is going to have a comeback this year. And I think we might try to do some form of play on direct mail. And one of the ideas is for people that we want to get in front of or for influencers in our space of door dashing them like the best tofu dish from their city, something like that, and
Yeah.
somehow videoing them trying to eat it, or going in the opposite direction of doing like stinky tofu and sending them something that is notoriously kind of
Oh, okay.
hard to
Wait,
eat.
okay. This is a distraction, but I sent my friend Chris at Sendoso this crazy idea. I was like, there's a place here in San Francisco called Oso Steakhouse. And I was like,
Mm.
and it turns out that there's like a lot, I don't know if this means something in some of the language, but there's a lot of these Osos. And I was like, what you need to do is do a campaign that's like, your mail is oh so boring. It's Oso last year. It's Oso. See how Sendoso can and come and join us at Oso Steakhouse. And I was like, that'd be
I love
great.
that.
Like, yeah. I was like, go do that, Chris. Yeah. So I'm hoping that I was like, look, the only thing I asked for is just I want a free steak. Just invite me to the Oso Steakhouse. So I like thought about a marketing campaign idea just so I could get free steak.
I actually think that is a very good idea.
Right?
Genuinely.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea, right? Like, yeah,
I'll
I'll
tell Chris as well. I think I
yeah,
support.
good. Yeah, great.
Nice. Well, we were just jamming backstage around how picking 17 segments is not a good strategy. So, what are your thoughts on the proper way to do segmentation and like kind of how you pick?
Well, let's talk about the. There's a great. I should forget the author's name, but um, uh, basically picking where to play, like where to play is how to win. I think what the book might be called.
Mm,
But the thing with horizontal go to market SaaS is that you're not forced to pick anything. And so you have a buffet approach to go to market, which is that people will come in. And this is, I guess, true for a lot of companies that don't have, like, the nice thing about vertical SaaS is like if you're selling to flooring companies, the flooring company in Tuscaloosa, Alabama is not much different than the flooring company in San Jose, except the San Jose one charges much higher prices for the same stuff. It's like the only difference. And so you have this forced constraint on you, which is like to understand one gives you compound interest. But with B2B SaaS, and actually Tofu is like probably a pretty good example of this, is like who can you serve? You can serve anyone. Who can't you serve? No one. I can serve any like so your criteria is not by industry. It's like, well, if you're not doing any marketing, it's like not quite great. If you're not doing like, but it's just kind of applies to a lot of people. So what happens is you get folks from your network and you start amalgamating these customers that look nothing like each other. Like the most awkward party ever is like 100 days into a B2B SaaS company and all of their customers, like they'd have nothing to talk about because they would be like, oh, are you into like plant manufacturing? Like, yeah, I make curtains. And it's like, oh, I do this other like weird, like they're just all over the board, right? Because people that you know, and they're like, I trust Elaine, like let's try it out, you know. And some of them churn and some of them, but the huge mistake in thinking, and I'm really curious to get your thoughts here because I do think that generative AI can play an issue here, is that you take all of that amalgamation of customers and then you just move it over to outbound to like where you're
yeah.
like who you're going after. And so you don't pick. And then what you do is you never figure that out. So there's no transition phase from founder-led sales to SDR. You bring in this SDR who's going to crush it. I don't know why, but salespeople are always crushing it. I don't know. This is like a thing that they have to do. There has to be crushing involved. No sales happen without crushing. Um, and they're, I don't know, they're drinking Monster energy drinks and they're sitting down and they're like, and but there's no strategy from leadership about how to make that transition from founder-led sales to outbound. And so you have these multiple personas in multiple industries with multiple segments, and multiple versions of the product. They're all buying different things, and you don't really get any depth of insight. And that was fine in the zero interest world where people weren't really measuring outcomes and stuff. So, but I do think that AI can play a place in this, because if you have the data and if you sold to 3, 4, 5, 6 people in each sort of segment persona combination, that AI can actually enable the rep to do things that result from bad strategy.
The thing that I'm seeing too, which is kind of fascinating, because I agree, most people are not willing to plant a stake in the ground and say, here's our very narrow segment for now. It doesn't mean that that's the segment you're going to go after forever. You can go and create a repeatable process with a small segment. I know the micro campaign thing is very hot right now, that terminology. But one thing I'm finding is it has to come from the founders, I believe, in terms of where do you plant the stake. From there, you have to figure out how are we going to measure across the board other things. Like you will be doing outbound, but also you're going to have inbound. Inbound is a signal. So where are we getting inbound? Where are we getting word of mouth? Where are people listening to our content or reading our content? And the lag time I'm seeing right now from a human perspective of identify a signal, meaning this cohort of people seems to be either doing better, converting faster, higher ACV, whatever, to then translating that into an actual campaign, like an outbound campaign. That process is not a process. And I think there's AI can help with 3 areas, in my opinion. The first one is helping to faster identify those signals. So being able to take all of the existing data on people who have talked to you or interacted with you in some way, shape, or form and say, cool, who should we be going after and why?
Yeah, I actually want to roast Gong for a minute. We tried to do this inside of Gong, and you can't have a conversation with all of your conversations. You can't even filter easily down to say, I just want to know about e-commerce. So Gong's like, ask any question about a call. And I'm like, what are you doing? I have no questions about an individual call. And there's like literally a market tab. It's like market. And I'm like, great, I'll click on that market tab. And it's like, here's like stats about the calls that you've had. I was like, what are you doing, Gong? Like you have the information, just literally. So I've had to do this before. It's like, I got to export every PDF of the transcript in 2024. I don't know why I'm getting a PDF. I got to paste that into Claude and ask stuff. I was like, just do it. Anyways, it's like, this is the exact point I was talking about. So anyways, continue on. I had to light Gong up because they just announced some new AI features. And it was like, just like, this is not useful at all.
Well, on that front, it's actually funny. One of our prospects, bigger company, they've built an internal thing that tries to aggregate data from Gong and a bunch of other places. So imagine if you can't even do it within Gong, imagine like attaching Gong to 5 other data sets. And then it's allowing you to query Slack to do this. So now you're introducing Slack.
Wow. It's like people like horse memes. It's like, what?
Which is, I think it's a great idea in theory if it worked well, but I just know how impossible that is today. And it was funny because they were saying, we're getting pressure to test that out for marketing stuff to be able to query that and then use that to write like a white paper. And I was like, interesting. So you're going to be able to go and find the right details across all this stuff, which you can't even do in Gong, but then also use Slack to write a white paper. So I was like, this is probably setting us up for success here, if that's what we're being compared to. But yes, we digress. Anyways, it's kind of like get the insight. Then the other piece where I feel like AI can be helpful is I think you have the human layer of saying, cool, we have this insight, now let's create the strategy. The execution of the strategy piece is like, great, we know we want to go and target this demographic of people. So now can we go and find who are the prospects that fit our ICP within this segment? What are the emails that we should be sending? And I know you have a lot of thoughts here on appropriate ways to do this. What other channels should we be leveraging? What is the content we create from there? And then I think the last piece and then you execute it with humans in the loop and hopefully turns into pipeline. And then measuring that and figuring out how you iterate. But I'm not really seeing anybody do this well yet.
I mean, I think that you're right. I am not seeing anyone do it well either. And generally, like even I struggled doing this with some of my clients. Like I was having a conversation with a client yesterday and I was like, okay, look, I can like use AI to monitor all the accounts that you care about. And the 1,000 segments, and they're doing what I think is the wrong thing, but it's like, I can help make the wrong thing less wrong. Like it's not going to be best, but which is the kind of generally what I do. So great. Let's like go have an AI research agent and go find out like what's kind of changing at this account. Why might they be a fit now? Here's like, yo, AI research agent, here's the like 7 hypotheses. Go rank this. And so now you have at least a sorted order of random accounts that you could go after that will give the AEs or the SDRs intelligence, phone numbers. The AI agent actually, I built a course on this, but the AI agent can go find the best contact. So it doesn't matter what your title is. Like, what is the person that's probably responsible for this with all the history of their LinkedIn, blog posts, anything written online to be like, this is the person. But, but the thing is that it's then like, so what? And so that next step is where everything goes haywire. And the CRO of this company came in and he's like, let me show you a slide. And he's like, here's like the deals that we got in August, and here's where we need to be. I'm like, did you just show me a bar chart? And you're like, you want the bar chart to be bigger? Yeah, I get your job. Like, I know. And I said, well, what changed? Like, well, what changed in August? Because like, if something went really well in August, it didn't go well in September. And it turns out that what changed is that leadership just every single day was like, what'd you do today? What'd you do today? What'd you do today? To the SDRs and the AEs. And I was like, for sure that must work. But that can't be the thing forward. We can't use all of this amazing generative AI to hand it off to someone and then like upload this to a sequence, which is like what's the point then? And so I guess I'm curious how you think about this, but it's like when marketing, it's like easier because you can just deploy to a channel. But on the sales side, it's kind of like, okay, well, I mean, what do? We drop this thing into a Nooks and then the SDRs are just picking up and it becomes outbound. Like, do we automate this into a sequence and say like, look, you're not going to be able, you as the A or SDR, you're not going to be able to add anything to this that you will probably make it worse than what the AI will do. And not that the AI will write, Hemingway copy, but, like, how are you thinking about sort of what is that process to get this thing to market when you talk about human in the loop?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where, I don't know, I personally just think that the concept of an SDR BDR kind of goes away. And I think there's a couple of things at play here. The first thing at play is those channels we did this to ourselves, by the way. We created a situation where those channels do not work because we gave people tools to make it really easy to spam people. And the more you spam people and the more access people have, the worse those channels are going to perform, the more blindness people have to them, and then you have to go elsewhere. And so we kind of screwed ourselves and saturated those channels. And if you think about a day-to-day, like day to the life of an SDR, they have a list of people, they're doing account research, they're making phone calls, they're sending emails, and hopefully booking some meetings. AI is exceptionally good at all of those things. So it just feels to me like, if AI can do that better than them for the most part, what's the point? B, if we believe that the channels that they're typically leveraging are not going to be as fruitful, does it even make sense to throw more humans at the problem? Or does it make sense to change strategy? And so I just think that entire thing kind of goes away. My personal take is marketing starts to own way more of the pipeline and way more of the funnel. So
you would say that.
I would, but it just logically makes sense, right? SDRs are demand gen, quite frankly. Like it's 50-50 in terms of whether they roll up to marketing or sales, but their function is demand gen. Or I'm kind of like using this new term of like interest generation. It's like they need to generate interest, and that's their job. And interest is in the signal of like, hey, I'm willing to take a meeting to learn more. But if you think about what demand gen is responsible for and how they're measured, it kind of just makes sense that they own everything up until mid-funnel or opportunity creation. And at that point, I believe that we still need AEs to build the relationships, to navigate all the bureaucracy that comes with sales, whether it's enterprise or mid-market. But I don't know, the SDR stuff just doesn't make sense anymore.
Well, yeah, I think that the really interesting thing here about this marketing owning this piece, it makes a lot of sense because, I asked this customer, I said, well, what's working? They're like, well, Google ads. I'm like, well, of course. Like, that's the best form of intent, right? People that are searching, how do I get a really fancy microphone so that people respect what I say? Which is just the microphone, by the way. They'll sell these to anyone. Did you know that? Like, you can just go into a store and give them money. They don't like, there's no, like, what are you going to talk about? There's no, anyone can buy one of these things. And so there's none of that. But I actually think that maybe I would push back on Well, or I would say that there's an opportunity now for automation that is based on actual insights from actual customers in certain segments, which is to say that imagine a world where the SDRs are really, really, really good at discovery, and they're really good at like, tell me about like what's changed in your business, and maybe they're guided by AI here, like, and so you have an SDR having a conversation, and they have like AI is asking questions like, hey, on 5 other calls like this customer, they were asking like, I want to know, AI's like, I want to know these things because I can't quite connect these other pieces. So ask them if this is true. Go validate this hypothesis with a person and talk to them. And then it's like, okay, great. For this segment at this moment, here's the signal. Here's like information that matters. Okay, great. And that goes back to a Tofu or whatever that will say, okay, we should target this segment. Here's the insight that this customer had. We validated that insight with 3 or 4 other customers. All we have to do is tell that story to another customer that is in that same situation. And AI could do that amazingly, but we need to think about the workflow. And I feel like all these AI tools, what they're doing is like, I posted today. I posted today a very famous Henry Ford quote. I don't know if you know this one. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said an AI SDR. That's like original Henry Ford. Yeah.
Whoa.
I got it. There's a tsunami warning. I'm in danger. I'm in danger of not using enough AI in my process. You might see me flooded in 10 to 15 minutes. I'm very far away from the ocean. This tsunami would have to be very large to hit me. So if I go offline, you'll know that there was a wave. I'm on the 3rd floor, so I feel pretty good about this. Anyways, I think that this is the thing that we're not doing, which is how do we use AI to structure the insights, and then once we have the insights, how do we take those insights to other people that that could benefit from those insights, right? It's the Peter Thiel what's one thing that you believe that others don't?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with your take on this. I kind of usually call it like the X factor, meaning you have to understand who your relatively narrow segment is, but what makes an actual effective campaign is having a single X factor that you're building it all around. So for us, a couple examples of that could be, hey, if we find people who are doing at least bi-weekly webinars, we know what a great use case for Tofu is. And so the X factor for us is they do biweekly webinars, or at least biweekly webinars or whatever. Another one might be they have an upcoming user conference. Again, very different story we tell, but we know exactly what that story is. And we also know that there's a signal in place that gives us that like need to reach out. Or maybe they just hired somebody for ABM for the first time. We now know they're investing in ABM because they're probably moving up market. So I think that that's the missing piece for a lot of the stuff. And I don't know, I'm curious, like, do you think that that's something that AI can help with? Or is that the human ingenuity that needs to feed AI to actually do the so what?
Well, I actually think an AI product needs to come along with a aggressive opinion about what to do. And that means that when you take on a customer, you have to be very opinionated about what this workflow looks like. And it probably also means that you're going to have to do it in a variety of different customer circumstances, which is hard. And so, I've seen maybe 2 products that are having some opinion about this. But it's like, look, here's how we work. What we do is we monitor the calls, and AI like goes and enriches the account and defines the segment and defines the ICP, which AI could do that. And it's like, okay, great. Now we have identified this as ICP, as this one ICP, right? And companies will sell to anyone, so it's like, is this in or out, or which segment is this? And then the AI can generate questions for the person to ask to feed the model. And I think if you take that approach and you say, of all of the conversations that you've had, the last Gong should do this. Gong is releasing ridiculous features, but I don't know why they're not as. Anyways, I won't shit on Gong anymore. It's like, so what is the what is the thing that you should be doing this month? And it should go to leadership, and it should say, look, we've heard all the conversations with their customers. This is the segment. There's some actual insights on these calls. These are the things that customers have said, like, well, what changed in your business to need this thing now? And it's like, well, like someone told me the other day that they're like an outsourcing company, and I was like, oh my gosh, like oxygen and outsourcing companies are the two most common things on the planet. I guess nitrogen probably, but so it's like
And
what
AI SDR
possible,
tools.
yeah. So like what possible value could you provide? And he's like, well, Jordan, people buy us when an engineering team gets laid off, a new CTO comes in, and they post a lead engineer position.
Mm.
And like, and that is that's from having conversations with customers, and that makes sense. But it comes from customers, not all these signal tools are trying to sell you like random ass shit. It's like, oh, if you just know and hiring, blah blah blah. But it's like, no, this is actually anchored on market buying behavior. So then
Yeah.
you can go to someone and you just tell the story. It's like, yo, Jordan, it must be hard to come into a company where your entire staff has been gutted, but it looks like you're starting to rebuild this thing. But my guess is that you don't have headcount to build the engineering team you need. So you're going to want to evaluate outsourcing companies, like, because you have budget. And so it's like, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't think now that would make a lot of sense to you even if you hadn't figured out that it was anchored against real customer buying behavior. And this is what all these tools are trying to sell to you. They're trying to say, we'll just give you the signals. But this is the one thing that's missing, is like, what does the customer say? And how do you take that to market? Right now, we're just inventing stories that are, random, like maybe one or two customers have said, and then we're just trying to say, like, for this company, we did this, and it's insane. And AI can help with this.
Well, and the other thing too that I see along similar lines is, as opposed to talking to customers, analyzing your existing user base, like asking the right questions, people are buying these intent tools, like a 6 Sense demand base, and being like, these are the in-market accounts. And it's like, why?
Yeah,
Please
why,
explain.
why?
It's a black box.
Yeah. And well, and all those companies, like, and I know that that if you talk bad about these companies, that they'll send you a cease and desist letter, which is like the last
I think they're actually
bastion.
great products and serve a real purpose. It's more about the explainability piece. And one thing that I think they've done exceptionally well is perceived value. So I think
Yes.
oftentimes perceived value trumps actual value, and they've
Mhm.
nailed perceived value. The
Well,
thing
I
that I
mean,
think is
yeah.
lacking is the explainability.
Well, but I don't think you can get there. Like, I mean,
Probably not.
yeah, it's like it's maybe a different thing if look, I don't like this, but I don't like it, and I wouldn't do it. But these sort of intent tools that identify website visitors and what content they're reading on your site, and they try to de-anonymize them so that you can. So they're like, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to be intent 1.1, not 2.0,
Yeah.
but they're trying to say, like, just like, you don't know why someone came to your website. You don't know. Try to find out who they are and speak to them based on. And this is all a fundamental flaw of, like, who are you for?
Yeah.
And you don't, if you don't know, you can't go build the target segment. You can't. And so these intent providers sold to the CRO, who has a lifespan of 18 months or something, and they're like, they just want to point to something and say, look, I don't. And they're given the shit bag from the founder, which is like, we target everyone and anyone that needs anything. And the CRO is like, okay, like, well, should we focus? And they're like, no, we can't, because we could sell to anyone. Everyone can use our product. Like, I can't tell you how many times I hear that. And it's like, okay, great. So they have to do that. And then, like, well, how do I find everyone? And it's like, okay, well, I look for keywords if anyone's searching for this. And intent was a version of that, where it's like, okay, well, like, who is in market for this thing? And I'm just going to compete with everyone else. And I'm going to be like, I'm better than that guy. I'm 20% cheaper or whatever. Like, and it doesn't make any sense. And the only reason that this sort of works from a Google and Facebook perspective is Facebook is like, I know that you don't know your customer, but I have just so much data. I'll just test random things and say
Yeah.
this worked. So you're buying testing from them. And Google actually is like, very interesting, because people are saying, how do I automate my marketing with AI? And it's like, tofu. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's like you're literally looking for the hand raisers outside of your website, and you're just paying for that. But for you to truly go to send someone a cold message and control your own destiny, which is what we're talking about here. All these other tools, they're charging you because you don't know where you're going. That's a different matter altogether.
Yeah. And a much harder one. I agree.
Much harder one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. I also promised you that I would ask my 3-year-old what we should talk about and start with that. And so this morning I asked her, I told her, I said, I'm talking to my friend Jordan, who you got to meet before, who we're going to talk about go to market. What should we talk about? And she asked if you were going to bring her a treat. So that was what she said. And then I said,
okay. I do
no, he's going to bring the heat. And she said, I'm not.
Well, I do have a treat for her. I didn't know that I'd be asked this question, but I do have a treat for her.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I bought a turkey gobbler maker for Thanksgiving. So I bought a turkey gobbler. So I hope that she will enjoy that. And next time
I will send her that part of the recording.
This is a little bit of a obscene tool, but I'm happy to give you a turkey gobbler for her.
Next time you see her, I think she would love a turkey gobbler or a demo of a turkey gobbler.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap. That was awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Let's do part 2 soon.
All right, sounds good. Later, Elaine.
See ya.